we're talking Patrick Agyemang to Derby question mark because this is a topic we spoke about with our friends at the Ram Review podcast, and I say we, I only meant me because Connor was busy, lame. Um, the episode actually just dropped today at the time of recording, so this is Monday the 30th. So make sure you go check that out if you haven't already. Let them know we sent you. But we were talking about how Patrick Agyemang, USMNT's starting number 9 and star striker, if you will, all the Euro snobs agree, um, is being linked with a move abroad from Charlotte FC. And right now it is Derby County who is in the championship and they are leading the race at the moment. However, there are other clubs circling and it's getting a little bit messy. Derby have put in an $8 million bid plus some add-ons, which Charlotte denied. And they have yet to book a medical or anything of that sort because obviously Agyemang at the Gold Cup. But with Charlotte turning down the offer, and other clubs circling, it is reported that Pat Agyemang wants to go to Derby. So my question for you is that the right move? Should he want that move?
You know what this move reminds me a lot of?
Josie Altidore to Sunderland.
Not exactly.
But close.
I also don't think he went straight from Major League Soccer to Sunderland. Didn't he go to
No,
like
he went to
AZ first?
Valencia, but we don't care.
All right. Well, then it's not a good comparison if it's not the same situation. It reminds me of Daryl Dike.
Nice.
It's a move from an up and coming player in Major League Soccer who kind of like made a name out of nowhere. I'll say out of nowhere because it's like I compare it to like a Jordan Morris. Like Jordan Morris kind of had a lot of hype coming in. Didn't hear much about DK before he kind of took off. Same thing with Agyemang. And now they've got an opportunity to make a move over to Europe, and I think Championship is a good first like landing spot for them because I feel like, we've talked about it before. I feel like the level is pretty similar between Championship and Major League Soccer, at least for a lot of the clubs. I mean, a lot of the Premier League teams that get relegated down are probably still a lot stronger financially and on the field, but I think generally it's a good step to kind of like not have to jump like drastically jump up in level. So I think it's a good like I think the championship in general is a good landing spot to kind of like get your feet wet and also just not have like a huge cultural shift either. Like you go over, you already speak the language of, a lot of your teammates, just around like life around like should be a bit easier to assimilate there. So yeah, I mean, I think championship in general is a good move for guys moving away from Major League Soccer.
Yeah, I think I would generally agree with that. And there are two ways that I take this. One is for just his development as a player and for his career and things like that. And the other one is about the World Cup. So I'm going to start here with just his ability, like just his personal soccer career. And I think you hit the nail on the head, right? The championship is very similar to MLS. It's a very physical league. We talk about that all the time, and we see a lot of players from the championship come and be successful in MLS and vice versa. It's not something that's completely out of the ordinary. However, there are other things that worry me about this, and I mentioned this on the show with Rams Review. And the first part is his level is very, and what I said on the show was you can still tell that he was a D3 player at one point because in the D3 game, when you're that big and that fast, you get into this mindset of, I'm going to hold the ball up, then I'm going to turn you and I'm going to run 45 yards and score on you. And he's tried that a lot at the national team level, and it's getting out of his game, which is really good. And he has success with it at MLS as well because he's just so big and fast. But it very likely will not work at the next level, right? At the next step. And he's got a lot of other things to learn about the speed of the game and things like that. But, you know, is Darby the team going to be the team that helps him fix all of that? And I'm not sure because they'll be in a relegation battle. They will, or at least they were last year. And my guess is that they're not going to magically turn that around tomorrow. So the the team itself worries me. Like if it was another team in the championship, I think maybe we have a different feeling about this. But is this the right move for him? I don't know. And on top of that, what came out from Corey from that chat with Rams Review was that Derby have already signed two strikers and are working on a third who are the exact same profile as Pat. Big, strong, target forward type players who they're going to run behind off. So not only does Pat now have to adapt to a new style of play and a new city and a new coach and all of this other stuff and learn the game to another level, he now has to fight two to three different players who do the exact same thing as him, who have been doing this in this league, in this country for years. So how long is he going to sit behind them before he gets a chance? And what will that do for his development is one of the things that I'm worried about, right? That being said, if Derby are coming in with an 8 million purchase for you, which is crazy for a low level Champions League championship team, by the way, uh, and Charlotte says, okay, we're not going to make you a DP, we're not going to pay you what you want, I think you have to go, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have the context previously that they're signing all these strikers. I have to wonder what they're trying to cook up with that one. I don't know why you would need four strikers potentially, or even if you go with three, I still feel like that's a bit excessive. But I think that's a fair point. I think the one thing I will say with the relegation fight is, maybe at least the pressure is a bit off. When DK goes over to West Brom back when he did, I feel like West Brom wasn't too far removed from being a Premier League team. So I feel like there was a bit more pressure to like you should be performing well. Like this is a team that should be fighting to get back into the Premier League versus you can go to Derby and it's like, okay, we're just trying to stay up. Like expectations are kind of low. The pressure may not necessarily be there to be like, oh, we have to be performing every single week, getting results against all these teams. It's like, if there's bad weeks, it's maybe a bit more expected just because Derby's kind of still finding their feet again after the whole mess they went through in recent years. So like maybe that's a silver lining for him if he does go to Derby. But I think I agree with you. I think it's concerning if he moves over there and then he just sits on the bench. Like that's not the environment you want to see. Like that's failed so many of these guys when they move over. Like Jordi Mihailovic, right? He goes over to Netherlands and maybe it's just he wasn't at the level and it wasn't the right move, but you end up not playing and then you just come back to MLS years later. But it's like you're going to do that in a year right before the World Cup. Like that's crucial. That's a major year. Like you're pretty much taking yourself out of the running. Like I'm not saying Agyemang's in the running for starting. I think that's kind of out of the question. But if he wants to even be in question for making the roster, I think, he needs to be playing this year. He can't just go to Derby and then sit on the bench for the entire year and get maybe 500 minutes.
Yeah, well, like I said, completely agree there. And not only do we have to worry about his long-term development, but we also have to worry about his short-term development because for those of you who don't know, this time next year we're going to be in the World Cup at home on home soil, and you can argue, and people have, and we probably will at some point too, that he is on the bubble to make the World Cup roster. And Connor just mentioned it. I'm mentioning it. You can have that argument. Is he a starting striker? Maybe, maybe not. Connor doesn't think so. I think so just because I think it'll get people mad, and I would love for that to happen.
Stir
At
that
the end,
pot.
at the end of the day, this decision is also going to impact if he makes the World Cup roster. How do you see this impacting his World Cup chances?
It all comes down to game time, I think. I mean, if he goes over there and does not get game time, I don't think you can call him in. I think the striker pool has a lot of people, granted, a lot of them who don't perform for the national team, but they have a lot of people in that pool. So it's going to be competitive. And I think you've got guys that are definitely ahead in the pecking order. Like, someone like Balogun, who, like, surely if he's healthy and, like, hasn't played 0 minutes the entire year, is your at least number two, probably starter. So I think the rest of the guys that get called in for that striker spot, it's going to come down to form. Who's hot, who's in form. You bring those guys. And if you're not playing, you're not in form and you're not getting called in. So I think it's massive that he gets game time. If he's going to make this move for him personally, he's got to feel confident that he can get game time there. Even if it's not right away, like he's got to be able to work into that starting lineup relatively quickly.
Yeah, well, and that's my big. I'll use the term worry. I don't know if that's the right word, but that's the word I'm going to use. And specifically, it's an approach on how, where is his mindset at that is going to make that decision for him. So if he moves now and he gets 0 minutes from now until next May, he does not go to the World Cup. Period. Like you said before, and I don't think anybody can argue that he should be there. That would be like arguing John Brooks should have been in 2022 when he didn't play for a year before the World Cup. Then it comes into this idea of, okay, what do you want to do? Are you willing to take that risk where maybe you don't play? you fall out of favor and you miss a home World Cup, a once in a generation World Cup, and then leverage that by saying, okay, I'm going to miss this, and I might be striker three, and I might not get it on at all, but I'll still be there. Or you say, okay, I'm not going to do that. I spent 4 years playing at the championship or wherever he ends up going after this, whether he's in Belgium or whatever. And then I'm preparing to be either striker two or one in the 2030 cycle, right? Like that's what's up here because he may not. This move may take him out of 26, but it might set him up for 2030. But does that matter for him over a home World Cup? And that's going to be the question he has to ask. Me, I don't take that risk. But that's why I'm a podcaster and not a pro soccer player because I never took risks. I was very safe.
No,
What about
you
you?
can't take that risk. No. You cannot take that risk. You can't because your career can completely flip upside down tomorrow. You can't be like 5 years down the line. I'm setting myself up for 5 years down the line. I think you have to take what is right in front of you. And what is right in front of you is a World Cup in your own backyard in 1 year. You strive for that. To me, that's no question. You don't put your chips for 5 years down the line when, you know, you never know what could happen. God forbid there's an injury, like a serious injury, you could just never fully recover from it. And then it's like, okay, I put all my chips in this and now I came up empty. Where it's like my chances were much higher before if I had just went for it in 2026. So I think you definitely do. This is my personal opinion. I'm sure people can have others, but you just you got to take what's in front of you right now. You don't put your chips in for 5 years down the line.
I would tend to agree with that, but it may be tough if they are throwing, a 300% pay raise. That might be tough to walk away from, right?
Yeah, very fair.
So definitely going to be interesting to see how he approaches that. But
Speaking of money, I think Charlotte are crazy for not taking 8 million for him. I mean, like I think that is a good sum of money for Agyemang here for a guy that hasn't topped 10 league goals yet and is already how old is he now? 24, almost 25. Like that's not old, right? But you're not talking about a 20-year-old who has scored like 10 league goals. Like he got six so far this year. He had 10 last year. Hasn't played more than 2,000 minutes, and they offered you 8 million, which is like in the grand scheme of things a small amount of money, but like in Major League Soccer terms, 8 million is like a good amount of money. I feel like I would have taken that personally. I don't know. What are your would you have taken that?
well, duh. I mean, by the way,
I'm not
how
saying you
how
person. I'm not saying like you pocket the money personally.
no, I know, but and anyway, that's the ceiling for a player like Pat Oggiman is very, very volatile, right? He can turn into the next Ron Lukaku, where he is just a dominant hold-up player who's always talking about it having a bad touch and whatever, but ends up being a top goal scorer for a bunch of teams. Like I think I saw something come out that he was like one of Belgium's like top three goal scorers of all time, something like that. And he could turn into one of those players, or he turns into just another really big guy who can't do it, right? So you don't know where that's going to land, and if somebody's coming in throwing that money, I think you take it, right? And I'm not saying that I think he's going to be poor. I think his ceiling is high if he continues to get minutes. But my worry is that he's going from 24 and now he's going to move overseas, possibly have 2 years where he's playing reserve team football, and now you're 26 on the fringe of a relegation bound Derby team. I don't know if that's the right move, but let us know in the comments what you think. Let us know if you think this is a good move for him or if he should hold out for the World Cup, hold out for other teams. Let us know what you think.